Generic MGP. This is Penelope. Nothing special. I mean, Penelope is special. Made some people very, very rich because they got cheap-ass Penelope, made a fortune with it, and then MGP bought it back. So the mash bill of it is 75% corn, 15% wheat, 7% rye, and 3% barley. It is a 4-year-old spirit. Regular number 3 char, aged all through. Yes, sir? What's MGP? Oh, it is the old Seagram's plant in Lynchburg, Illinois, not Lynchburg, Tennessee, that produces probably 60% of the bourbon that you find on the shelf that you think is somebody's distillery that they just buy and sell. Huge, huge producer. I mean, they make good juice. Bullet that you think is Bullet bourbon that Bullet makes, Bullet doesn't make it, MGP makes it. But a lot of the brands that you see, it comes from that giant Seagram's plant. I don't mean to knock them. They do good stuff. Most people, when they think of rye whiskey, they think of MGP rye because it flooded the market. The Bullet rye originally was MGP. Bullet does make their own rye now, though. So just to make that clear. So it's a huge brand that a lot of the stuff you see, a lot of the stuff we've tried here from new startup places that bring it in when they're just bringing it is MGP. So it's nothing bad, but it's a generic spirit, and I like that about this. What a lot of people do is they buy that spirit, and then they do something else to it, aging it. Quite a bit of the original Crowded Barrel stuff was MGP to start with, but you then age it for a while somewhere else, so you do something else. So the charred, the second thing you got, is their generic $38 bottle of straight up bourbon, okay? The first one you got was their toasted, which means they took that exact spirit, then for 6 months, put it in a brand new toasted barrel, okay? Instead of me ruining it, we'll see about that, and then we can talk about it more if you have more questions after the video, that they just toasted, aged it longer than that, and then bottled it. Now, I wanted you also to compare them identical. When you buy the toasted, if you ever see it, which it is readily available, it is either gonna come 100 proof or cast strength. I went ahead and proofed this down, so this is all at 40 proof, or at 40%, it's 80 proof, because I wanted it to be identical to y'all, not to all of a sudden go, woo, this has a sharper bite to it. So this is all 40% alcohol, which is the bare minimum what whiskey can be to be whiskey. Yes, sir?
Do you see a lot of these distilleries starting to do this?
What do you mean? Oh, yes, that is what tonight will be. We're not gonna go into all the different ports. I mean, we'll talk a bit about that, but all the flavors, we're gonna focus on all the different woods that people do and everything, and the barrel itself and the stuff it does. But yeah, it's what everyone wants to do to have a little different thing. So feel free to play with it while you're watching the video and while we're talking, and see what you can think is different, try it. There is more, and later if you want, we do have more if you want to try the toasted at the full 100 proof, 50% more than welcome to. So with that, let's get to it, go into this a bit, and then we'll see a bit about charring and toasting. This will be Kelvin Cooperage outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know how to work oh, here we go. Done, click that. Boom, I guess you push that. I don't see a play button.
You just hit spacebar? Boosting radiant heat, non-direct flame contact. Charring, direct flame contact, you're actually creating carbon and burning the wood itself. From the aging side, they do two very different things, and a lot of people don't understand that the toasting is so critical because it's actually an additive. It's adding flavors, vanillas, butterscotches, sweet flavors. The char really more takes away. It adds color, but aside from the color, it's acting as a filter and actually taking off flavors out.
You get to a point where, it's a heavy toast or it's a light char. That's a fine line, but there is an understanding, I think, that the barrel should be light.
Magic to it all is the toast. Yeah. It's hidden underneath the char. No one really knows about it, but we think that's what makes the big difference.
If we were to char for a very long time, you could probably lose that toast layer, and you might lose some of the nice kind of the middle palate stuff.
What flavors would you get from American oak?
Nice sweet vanillins. When we're toasting, you get the kind of almost a marzipan-y, nutty, really pleasant smell, like baked bread.
Yeah.
Can I tell you what I want? You know, when you're doing popcorn.
Right. Yeah, so
And sometimes they burn me popcorn.
right, you toast the marshmallow, and then you actually light it on fire.
We'll do about 20 minutes of toasting, and then it'll char for another 2 to 3 minutes. But it varies, and what you'll see in here is that we don't do anything based on time or temperature. We do it mainly with smell and sight. A lot of the new developments in coopering are to remove the human element, to mechanize, to computerize toasting that tells you when to add more wood. We don't want any of that. No. So here's where the toasting and charring happens. We took what we learned from making wine barrels about slowly toasting, letting the heat penetrate the wood. So we do that, and then we let it char. People have an understanding that they like an alligator char.
Okay.
Which makes sense. You've got nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
As it liquid expands and contracts, over the seasons, it's going in and out of those nooks and crannies. What happens with our charring and toasting, with that toast layer underneath, if you scrape away the char, we don't char it long enough to get rid of all that toast. So that toast layer we know is actively, so it's going in and out, it's going through that toast layer, getting exposed to that, coming in through the char. Char is the carbon filter, the toast is your additive layer, and it all works beautifully together.
Okay, so on barrels, toasting and charring. So there's little bitty barrels, staves I chopped up in front of y'all, and there's actually more back there. Feel free to take them, too many of them. Charring is, like he said, this is something learned hundreds of years ago from the wine company, or wine countries. They build the barrel, they built a little fire with the little chopped up pieces of wood in the center of it and leave it, sometimes for almost 2 hours actually, to just do a little fire inside there to bake it, to get in there, because that pulls out basically the vanillins, the sugar lactones that are in there. Once you char it and get that hard in there, the different levels of char, it acts as a filter. So most common in America, that number 3 is what almost every barrel comes out of unless you special order. And you can get it all the way through. Then you go through the more and more and longer toasting is becoming more popular. Tonight we're mainly focusing bourbon. You get into the whole Scotch and American single malt, it is all over the gamut with what they do and how they do it throughout it all. But also, one of the requirements for a bourbon is it must be charred. You can't use an uncharred barrel. For Scotch or for American single malt, it can be just toasted and not. So the toasted can still be considered bourbon because it did spend years in a charred barrel, then they just finished it something else. So that's what's fine. So the beauty of doing that slow cook in that, to seep into the stave and everything and bring out the hidden flavors of that wood, and then doing that char is what lets that liquid, as it's soaking in there for a long time, going in and out. And as the night goes through, we'll go into more about getting into that wood and how far the liquid throughout the time goes into that barrel and comes in and out, that it goes through. Like I said, I'll ramble a bit. Any questions on the charring process? So he mentioned alligator char. A lot of them, they actually go up to, it depends where you are. A Kelvin actually goes to a 5. Some independent stave company goes to a 7. It just depends how long. For the most part, after you do, they all do a bit of a char, be it 15 minutes, be it an hour. Then this is a direct open flame, hit hard, 15 seconds, 25 to 30 seconds, 40 seconds, just under a minute. And then depending on what you do. There's been the ones that have done that. Hey, let's do 2 minutes and just cake it through, and it goes a bit too far. But, varieties, spice of life, experimentation, you never know what you might get. So you go through and try different things. I had hoped to get y'all a bottle of charred and chiseled from a place called Cooper's and Craft out of Louisville. It's quite common on the East Coast. I did not realize you can't get it in Texas anymore. But what they do is take a barrel, and after it's charred, they pull the heads, and then they come in and slice it and cut it. So you have this, and then they go in and cut and like almost router out all the way to the bare wood around it. So you have that charred, but then you have fresh wood that the spirit gets up into it. And I think it's different. I think you can taste the difference in everything. It's fairly well. And it's one of those, throughout Kentucky and Tennessee, it's fairly common. They just don't have wide distribution. I found out that they did, and they had to pull back because they just don't have the production level. Because it is a distillery that does a lot of their own coopering, of making their own barrels, and it takes a bit of time to go through with it. I've gone in, some distilleries are big enough, they have their own cooperages, and they do all their stuff on site. If you ever make a trip to Louisville, one of the old Forester that they built downtown Louisville, they have a miniature cooperage on site where you get to see everything right then and there. That's a great little, small tour right then and there to see everything, where you're not going to this giant manufacturing place that's 160 degrees when you're walking around inside of it. Yeah, the cooperage makes the barrel from scratch all the way. One other thing I'll go ahead and say, so the oak, we'll get into all the species of oaks and everything then, it is not new and cut. It's gotta be yard aged. They used to kiln, they've learned doing a dry kiln is not good. You've got to yard age it, anywhere from 3 months to 4 years. The longer it's yard aged, the more expensive that barrel will be. And then the coopers then buy from lumber mills that yard aged wood and start doing their whole process of going through to make the actual barrel itself. So Kelvin then, you sort of, I think this goes in, it gets a little more deep than I think is truly there, but hey, each their own. But you do have that, both sides of toasting and charring and where it can get you, of you can take toasting all the way and you can take charring all the way, but I would love something right in here. I like that heavy toast. I like it bringing it all out. The whole Tennessee process where they charcoal filter. I mean, that basically what they're doing. They have a spirit that they want to completely filter to take out the harshness. That's what charcoal does. It cleans up your spirit. It works great. So that's what it is. The longer you leave something in, the beauty of what the barrel does is cleans up your spirit. So the whole thing, when someone at a distillery, when they say they make tight cuts on their still, they already have a really clean spirit. Doesn't have as much flavor. If you make a really wide cut, you're gonna have a whole lot more flavor in your spirit, but you're gonna need to leave it in that wood a long time so the wood can do all that interaction to clean it up. And that's sort of what you're gonna learn a little bit in one of the videos is that interaction between the wood and the spirit cleans up and is where you get all these flavors, is all the lactones, the polycholesterol. That's too much chemistry and biology. Yes, sir?
Where would you put the two samples that we have here?
Okay, so sorry on this. We actually lucked in, Seth didn't even know he did it. So the first one, it was a number 3 char. They didn't say the toast, I would say it was a light toast, light to medium toast, that they aged for 4 years. Then the toasted, on each bottle, you can see on the very bottom, it actually says toast char on the toasted bottles, not on the bourbon bottles. So quite a few of them, if you look to it, they actually had some number 5 toasts. The reviews of the number 5 toast aren't too kind. The number 3 toast are quite kind. And that's the one he picked up. So kudos to Seth. So again, that when they went into too heavy, it was actually, people felt that it got too astringent and everything. So that it's one of those things that they put through and do. But also, to each their own, that's the beauty of trying different things. What I might like, you might hate. And so try your own. I grew up loving Talisker, and I think part of the reasons I loved it is because all my friends hated it and they never would touch it. So I didn't have to worry about anyone drinking my stuff. So, yes, sir.
Color profile, is that mainly affected by the char?
I would say the char, a good amount, but also that age difference. The newer, because the toasted was in a new oak, that pulled out a lot of color. So that's a lot of it too. If you're putting something in a already used oak, that initial draw from the oak gets a lot of the coloring out. You still get a lot of flavor out of a used barrel, But that initial color hit will come from a newer barrel. And it's really the amount of temperature swings that's that in and out of the wood that the liquid does gives you that. The beauty of the charring in there is as it's passing in and out, it gets you that flavor. So if you had a really heavy charred barrel, but it had been used, 3 times already by somebody else, and then you had something and put it in there, you might not get that much color out of it.
Would you say that a heavy toasted whiskey would pull more of that color?
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would.
Like when I'm looking at these two.
Yes.
You see one is clear.
And I think the toasted's darker. I don't know if anyone remembers which sample is which. Do you feel that? Okay. And I proofed down the toasted, which means I added water to it, which technically lightened it. I diluted it a bit even. So
back to kind of piggyback off Ryan, that explains the color difference.
yes.
Pulling the color from inside.
Yeah. Now, part of it is because this sold. Oh, FYI, these are all Heaven Hill. This is a Heaven Hill barrel. It was used by Heaven Hill for 4 years, then sold to our friends at Swift Distillery. They then used it twice, 2 years, and then 2 years again, and then threw it out in their yard for a while. And I said, hey, can I just take that? So, and that's where you get, that's part of the reason this is so dark, is because it just set out for a long time. But not really, you can still see this so-called red layer that you'll hear about in a bit, but it's passing through so much. And that red layer is where you're still getting so much of that flavor and coming through. And I still smell a good amount of it. And then I guess a bit of a teaser from that is staves. One of the things I do, I don't know how many of you enjoy smoked drinks and such, but when you leave on the back, there's little bags of actually shavings from a stave. Feel free to grab and take home with you. Even if you don't do a smoke, if just popping them out, smelling it, it still smells of bourbon, being as old as it is, but just burning it is a great thing. I think that's wonderful aroma. I love cutting it up. If you can get hold of old barrels that places are getting rid of, awesome to cook with. Just instead of using charcoal, if you just build a fire, let it come down to coals, then throw it into a charcoal grill or something, I think it's great. But
Yeah, Bruce, I've got a couple of, Bear Mountain has pellet grills. They have bourbon barrel pellets. They're fantastic.
So I'd forgotten I'd actually had this one up there. So a little blurb that Penelope has on each of their deals that it goes through. But yeah, that I did proof down so they were all even to sort of compare with. How did you do that? Well, yeah, purified water. I knew it was 50%. I knew if I had 12 ounces and I added 3 ounces, it would cut it to 40%. I also have an app that tells me that because I'm lazy. At first I was like, ooh, I'll bring Vassals, I'll bring a hydrometer, an alcometer, and I'll do all that. But I was like, or I have the app that I'll just say I have this many ounces. I'm at 50%. I want to be at 40%, and it tells me how much to add. Well, it's MGP. It's Luxembourg.
Where's the actual place?
No, it never was. It was a guy that went, I want to create a brand. So he went to Lynchburg, Indiana, to this giant sourced whiskey place and said, I want to pick through your whiskey and buy barrels, and then I'm going to release the stuff. And so he did that, and it became a phenomenon.
So they don't have a location?
Yeah, yep. And then MGP says, by gum, you're making too much money. We want to buy it back and do it ourselves. And so, yeah, this is named after his daughter. He named it Penelope for his daughter. It does actually say that. But, kudos for him. I mean, and that's actually one of the things when I got into this, they kept saying that's how you want to start your company with the thought of selling it. And I'm sorry. I mean, I won't have a problem selling if the brand takes off, I can sell the brand, but I'm not gonna sell my ranch and my build. No, I like it because of the production.
I remember when Dan Garrison was here.
Yeah.
He talked about his concern is with MGPs. People could, do that, but there's a difference. So people need to understand.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah, there is a place, Smithville, Texas.
I know where that's.
Yes, there is a gigantic distillery in Smithville, Texas that will bottle and label and do everything for you, and they will not let you in. So when I wanted to tour it to see, no, because we have NDAs we signed for everyone, so you can't know what's in there. And I'm like, well, then I have no desire to.
What is that?
A non-disclosure agreement? Well, it used to, I'm drawing a blank on, they used to have, Fitch's Goat was the product they used to do back in the day, but they got rid of that because it didn't sell that well. But they do a lot of bulk spirit. One of the companies that does quite well with them, they have about 4 restaurants in the Dallas area that they've started to try to produce on their own, but that's where they were getting their stuff from. I've lost it, but it's quite nice. I mean, they do. Bone. There you go. Bones. But yeah, there are quite a few. The largest distillery west of Mississippi is Gulf Coast Spirits down in Houston. They bought the old Uncle Ben's Rice facility. They also bought where the city that Sol Ross is in, Alpine. They bought Big Ben Brewing Company. They have gigantic stills. They have a lot of their own product. Seth knows one of their products fairly well. I don't know if he knows that.
So MGP, you can source, but there's other places.
Oh yeah, so Gulf Coast Spirits. They do a lot of sourcing for people because they produce so much. So they're all happy to do stuff. Alamo will source if you want. They don't do a lot of it, but they're glad. So any of the places, a lot of the big name places do a lot of contract distilling. If somebody goes, hey, I want to do something special, because they realize they have extra production. So it's not, it's not a taboo thing, it's not a bad thing. It's just Lord, I'm gonna do it. Because my wife really hates that I don't have a product and things gonna take for years. I gotta have something to sell.
But when people are looking at a bottle, they have to put it on there that it's.
Not really. So, since I'm in Texas, if I buy from Gulf Coast Spirits, I don't have to say that it came from there because it came from Texas, and I'm in Texas. So I can say produced and bottled by Westwell Whiskey in Fort McKavett, Texas. I didn't say distilled.
Not distilled.
I just said produced and bottled.
That's a good thing when people are looking at these.
But if I bought stuff from Bardstown Brewing or if I bought stuff from MGP, I would have to say distilled in Indiana, bottled in Texas. Milam and Green, beautiful blenders. They blend so well. In fact, this weekend, Marlene Holmes, who got inducted to Whiskey Hall of Fame, big party for her. Not only is she an amazing distiller, she's a great blender with Heather Green. They do about half and half of what their own stuff is and what they go and source barrels, bring in to Blanco and blend. So I don't mean it as a taboo thing, it's a great thing. I'm hoping to do a lot of real small places to get stuff in, to blend, to be able to have some, so it makes my own. I just don't want to grab somebody, add water to it and go, hey, look, it's mine. So yeah, Penelope, anything on Penelope and toasting versus charred? Well, still going into wood. We're about to go to another video from Daniel Whittington. I edited it all up, but he actually said it was okay. I didn't want to break any rules or anything. But this one is just about barrels itself and what a barrel does. So let's see if I know how to hit play. I can't even see where the play button is. Seth, how do you even see the play button?
Heard that a lot.
Okay.
So, what does the barrel do to flavor, and is it responsible for most of the flavor in whiskey? Yes, but it's not just the barrel. It's not like there's nothing, and then the barrel, and there's your flavor. Here's how. Nerdy science guy. Flavor is created in whiskey in multiple steps in the process, and I'm not going to name chemicals or we're going to be here for hours. But first, you have the grain. And the different grains provide different flavors. And I don't even just mean corn and rye have different flavors, which they do, but even different strains of barley, different strains of corn. Iron Root has gone down the path of proving different strains of corn in small percentages in Nashville can change everything. Waterford has spent an entire business model showing that farms make different whiskey. Different farm, different barley, different flavor. So the next place is when you start to ferment things. You start fermenting, you have yeast. Yeast creates flavor. Different yeast strains create different kinds of flavor compound. And how you ferment changes what flavors get created by the yeast. You do a short fermentation, you get a certain kind of character profile. You do a long 4, 5, 6, 7 day fermentation, you get a whole different flavor profile. You do a 2 or 3 week fermentation, which there are out there, you get a whole other flavor profile, right? And now you have a wash, and you run that into a still. Now, the distillation doesn't create flavor, but it isolates flavor, right? So there are all these chemicals in there, you distill it, you're pulling out flavors and attached to the ethanol, and you're keeping some and not the others. And so you're creating a new overall flavor by picking and choosing what you keep from that wash. And then you have that new make. Now, does new make have flavor? Yes. I just did a sit-down comparison with Jake Clemens from the Texas Whiskey Festival, and we just tried 4 different new makes from the Scottish distillery Holyrood, and they were all night and day, remarkably different spirits, even though they were all barley. It's just different barley strains, different yeast strains, and they were not even close to each other. It's astounding the difference, right? Then you put that in a barrel. Then what happens? So barrels do 3 things: additive, subtractive, and transformative. Additive is, or subtractive is the charcoal layer. That's a filtration layer in a barrel. It sucks out compounds you don't want in a final spirit. It's what helps sort of clean up a new make a little bit and make it more what you think of when you think of whiskey. That's a small part of the flavor impact of a barrel. A little bit bigger impact is the additive, which is the red layer where you're getting the wood, actual wood tannins, and it's what happens when the alcohol eats the wood and pieces of the wood absorb into the spirit and add the impact of oak to a spirit. That's a lot of the dryness in this and a lot of that wood varnishy kind of note. But there's a third layer, and the third layer of flavors is the majority of the flavors typically, and that's transformative. That's the new flavor compounds chemically that are created when alcohol and oak interact with each other. They break each other down and fight with each other, and they create whole new flavor compounds. And that is the vast majority of flavors in a whiskey, is this transformative interaction with wood and spirit. Yes? Okay. So, does wood add all of that? Yeah, because barrels are doing additive and transformative. That's 2 of the 3 things. That's a lot of flavor. But the thing is that the flavors that are created are based on 2 sides of an interaction, and wood only carries with it certain things. What you do on all of the stages of the process up until you put it in a barrel determines what chemicals the barrel has to interact with. Now do you see what I mean? All of the changes of the flavor profile up to the point where you put it in a barrel completely alter what a barrel does to the new make spirit. And so the same barrel, change any of those steps, you completely change the end product taste. And so by that definition, which this feels super nitpicky, but again, this is something I've heard a lot. By that definition, is barrel responsible for the majority? No. Does it partner with the new make to create whole new things? Yes. And so I don't know what the right word for that is, because this is not an answer, because I would argue the new make doesn't provide the majority, and the barrel doesn't provide the majority. The majority of flavor in a whiskey, I think, comes from the violent battle, and sometimes gentle acceptance between new make spirit and a barrel. That's where all the flavor in whiskey comes from. Most of the flavor in whiskey comes from. If that's not the most complicated way to answer, does the barrel give you most of the flavor? I don't know what is. You should be proud of me. It's about as nerdy as it gets.
Okay, so what you have in front of you now is Maker's Mark Private Reserve from their cave. So, tease what's in front of you. We'll get into that in just a second, though. So, what Daniel got into was that it's everything that gives you your flavor. That yes, it is the barrel, and the barrel does a lot. And the barrel can be all different things, which is tonight, for the most part, what we know is American white oak. And what I wanted to also do a little blurb on is why American white oak? So over 600 varieties of oak, but only 20% of the varieties of oak have what's called tyloses, which is the cellulose compound that lets air move in and out but keeps water in, which is why you can't use the live oak that we have. Balcones, about 6 years ago, had cut down some giant trees in an area they had property of, they loved, and they had it all cut up and chopped, and they moved to the top of their building in Waco to let it air dry for 2 years. And they sent it to Independent Stave Company and said, build barrels for me. And Independent Stave Company said, no problem, this is a cool idea. And then the Independent Stave Company pretty much said this to them because it was horrible to work with. Because live oak doesn't have tylose. It just doesn't bend well, doesn't work well. They leak like a sieve. Both Garrison Brothers and Westward Whiskey, is it Westward? That did an exchange and they made barrels out of pecan. Pecan puts in great flavor. The wood does great things, but no tyloses in that type of wood, and it leaks like a frickin' sieve. But Garrison's ended up putting pans underneath because it just leaked so bad, so they just sort of put it back into the barrel, and then Dan finally got pissed off and said, forget it, I don't care anymore. So, the main types of oak that are used. You've got American oak for Old Bourbon, okay? Now, there are different types. You have the main American oak, which is the white oak, but you also have Oregon oak, which is called Gariana. I'm not even going to try on the chemical names. So American oak, I'm not even going to, it's pretty much everything, but the Oregon oak, again, not going to mention any of the American single malts or scotches or any of that stuff because they all use all the different woods. But like bourbon, the Oregon oak can really only be used up in Oregon. They're real strict on it. Burnside. If you ever find a bottle of Burnside, it's a distillery in Portland. They do some quite interesting stuff with Oregon oak that you go through. But those are really the only two American oaks. French oak. French oak is huge. That's almost all of your wine cask and everything are from French oak. That's what almost everyone does their second maturation in, the different types of French oak. And then Spanish oak you put through. So many bourbons have the French oak. Spanish oak is coming more and more popular. Rebecca Creek out of San Antonio has 2 different releases they've done on Spanish oak. Hungarian oak. Oh, actually, let's go back. So the American oak, sweeter. It has vanilla, bread, citrus, coconut flavors, what people like. The French oak is a much spicier, leathier, dried fruit flavor that it imparts. Spanish oak is nuttier, raisin, and the fruit isn't so much of a dried fruit, but more of a fresh, bizarre, almost red wine-ish fruit flavor in my mind. But then the Hungarian oak, if you're familiar with Masterson bourbon that you see, they've done a couple of different releases with Hungarian oak. It's more of an exotic spices potpourri type flavor that wood imparts. Then the Oregon oak that I talked about, what a lot of people talk about it is it imparts Kansas City barbecue. That much tangier sweet smoke is what they say. Then you go all the way across to Japan, Mizunara oak. Very, very expensive. A barrel of Mizunara will cost you $2,000 to $3,000, where a barrel of white oak can be $200. Mizunara grows at about 10% the rate of white oak. Quite a few Japanese whiskeys will have it, but both Barrel Craft, you know Barrel Craft, but Barrel Craft, if you find it, they've done some Mizunara, and so has Broken Barrel, if you see that. Now, I can tell you both Angel Envy has done a Mizunara that they sold for $2,500 a piece, and so has Rabbit Hole. Yeah, but
To be late for that, Mizunara, it's over 100 years.
Yeah, and then it's very old oak. I mean, but you can, the barrel craft and the broken barrels, I mean, they're like $150 for the bottle. I mean, but yeah, it's a specialty thing to get. Mongolian oak is coming more and more popular. Buffalo Trace has been doing it the most. Now, Buffalo Trace, huge line, lots and lots of products. So E.H. Taylor has one, Old Charter. I want to say like 4 of Buffalo Trace's lines do a Mongolian oak, and it is sort of earthy cocoa flavors, nutmeg. Back to that Mizunara, it's sort of sandalwood, heavy spices. But yeah, so those are the main oaks. But like I said, 600 varieties, but only that 20% actually have that tyloses that make it all work. To hold in the liquid, but let that air move in and out, because that's what you need, that movement of the air with that liquid sort of passing through.
The bourbon barrels will go over there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, to go in and out everywhere and get things in, and it's the exchange, because that's where you're gonna think. People, now, that doesn't mean you can't use live oak. What a lot of people do, spirals in any type of wood. Now, this is a miniature. This is that Oak and Eden you can buy, that you mix your own little thing and you can drop a spire in. So I can buy big ones of these that I can just drop into a barrel. What we're about to talk about with this is how they make their private reserve, is they add a bunch of different pieces, extra staves to the barrels to add extra flavor. But you can do all different types of wood. People do maple, people do cherry, people do pecan. Chinkapin is becoming more and more popular. Burana gets a bit scary. Apple. You can try different things. I had no desire to try mesquite in it at all, but yeah, different things. So that's it. So private reserve. So the Maker's Mark cave, if you've heard of it. So when Makers came about, so in 1952, they started filling barrels. This is actually their number one barrel that they filled in 54, that they put through. 53 was when they got their license. And for 52 years, they just kept with that. When Bill Samuels Jr. took over everything, his little joke is, Daddy said, son, don't fuck it up. But he was like, we got to try something different. And he tried, and he finally came up with Maker's 46 in 2010. Over 50 years later, they came up with something different. And what Maker's 46 is they took a barrel, they popped the head. So after they've already aged it about 5 years, 6 years, sometimes longer, they pop the head, they add 10 the French oak staves. This is one from when you tour the deal, they just have these big things they buy. It's not stave like this at all. It's just flat pieces of wood, like 25 inches long, that they throw in to the barrels. They put 10 of them in, and the next slide have it, I want to say it's 10 weeks. Throw them in there, let it sit for 10 weeks, and then bottle it. And it does, it imparts great. What it is, it's baked for a bit longer. The stave is, they put them in the convection oven for a bit. Come out, bottle it up, and I think the 46 is so much better than the regular Makers. But put through. Then, a couple of years after that, maybe about 5 years after that, they started to where stores could go. You can go too, for $15,000, you can go and pick your own and bottle it. Now think about it. 15,000 divided by 250 bottles is really not that bad. But, so if any of y'all want to give me 15,000, I'll let you have 250 bottles. But, so like this one, you go in there, you pick, you go through, and we'll go into it more, and you make this. This one is Mr. Whisker's Wine and Liquors. That's a little store in Nashville, Tennessee. And you get to choose from 5 different types of staves you get to throw in, and then they leave it in there for 10 weeks. This is just the regular Maker's Mark. Then they add it after it's aged, at least 4 to 5 years, leave it in for 10 weeks in the cave, then they bottle it and ship it to the closest liquor store to you to put through. So this is pretty much so, and see, here's these other ones. This is the French Cuvée. What you have in front of y'all is the Maker's Mark Stave Profile from 22 Bourbon Day Special Select. And was it Total Wine, Mr. Seth? Okay. Specs. So Specs went and picked. And they chose 7 baked American. Baked American pure just means that it was the white, the generic bourbon barrel deal. 2 seared French cuvee barrels, staves, and 1 French Mendant. So what I'll do though is give you a bit more information on each one of the pieces of wood. But when you do so you go in there to pick, you get to try all different things. They give you these little things to mean each different stave. You go in there and you line up your little coaster, and the person that's helping will make a little concoction of whatever you lined up. And so you can try it to see what you might like. And then you decide on it and put it all together. So like this one, tried it all through, and a lot of them have real fun little names. You can name it whatever the heck you want to put through. So the baked pure is just a regular white oak that has a long toast in a convection oven, about 40 minutes. The seared French, which there's 2 of in here, it is French oak that was baked in an infrared oven for 20 minutes. And it also, you can see this one, the French cuvee, it actually is a wavy, it's been grooved. So when it's in that convection oven, it has different levels. Some is baked more than others on it. The Maker's 46, it doesn't have any, but that one is the same French oak board, but it's baked for 35 minutes longer in the infrared oven. So it's baked for almost an hour. Then the roasted Mendant, it imparts milk chocolate, dried fruit, coffee flavors. It just has 1 of them in there. Wish there were like 7, but whatever. So it is not in an infrared oven, but a convection oven on the same, well, and it didn't tell me, but it's not this, it's the same heat level as the baked pure for the same time. And then the final one, we don't have any in ours, but the toasted French spice that imparts fresh fruit, zesty spice, it is a convection oven on very low heat for 30 minutes, and then they kick it to an extreme high heat for 5 minutes, and then pull them out. So that is the Maker's Mark. So
That middle picture, what does that show?
So what it is, it's a board that when you're at Maker's Mark, choosing your barrels to go to this private reserve, private selection, you have 10 discs representing your 5 different staves that you can throw in to inside the barrel. Whatever arrangement you want, you're given 2 hours. They time you because, I'd be there the whole damn day. And then you go through there, put it all nice, pick out things, they'll put it through, you pick what you want and put it through.
So Bruce, you put all 10 staves in?
You have to put 10 staves in, and you can pick whatever arrangement you want of these 5. I mean, if you wanted to just do you could put all Maker's Mark 46 and you would just have your own Maker's 46, because that's what Maker's 46 is. You can put through, a lot of them are quite interesting that they'll do, it'll sound like desserts because the way they pick it and make out up different things. When you're at different stores, you can look for those private selections and see what they have, because they're all over the place. Because it is, anyone and everyone can just go and make one, and stores all over do it.
So how long do you have to stick one of those, what are those called?
The spirals or the staves? So these staves, 30 days. So if you go to Oak and Eden, Bridgeport, northeast of Fort Worth, is Oak and Eden's main store. They have 6 different types of spirit and 12 different types of spirals. I mean, it's one of those to the so-and-so power, so there's 12,000 variations or something. You go through and you can taste up, you can figure out what you might like, and then you drop it in there, seal it, and they'll sell you the bottle, and you're supposed to leave it alone for 30 days. So it doesn't over oak because there's only so much. So leaving it, the whole problem is if you buy yourself a 1-gallon barrel and throw spirit in it and just leave it for a year, if it doesn't all evaporate and disappear, you have a chance of just getting so much oak in there. It'll just get bad.
Spiral from a stave?
Yes, this is just an oak stave that they purposely cut it in this spiral so you have so much surface area to go through. And so like when I'm at they sell them that are the size just under the bung of a barrel so you can drop it in. No, No. This is just one they'd given me at one time that you can go through. So it's also one of those things you can do. You can get them, you can order them online, different things. Or I could sit there with a torch, burn it a bit, get a little toast, and then drop it in something to try. You can, do little things to change up stuff. So I still haven't, like I do, I sit there and talk, I still haven't tried. Have we thought about the makers?
Makers has done more of this, because they've really leaned in. Other ones do that, or is it?
They've leaned to this more than anybody. A lot of people. So actually, there's going across the pond for a bit. Compass Box started doing this, and people started chastising them for this. 20 years. Putting staves inside barrels. Oh my God, you're mixing, it can't be that. What a lot of people have started doing is mixing staves. So, let's get some French, let's remake a barrel. And let's do different staves in the barrel itself, just to make it different. A cuvee barrel, I would love to try to get there, it's a little too expensive. So, barrels. You have all different size barrels too. We're used to just the generic 53-gallon barrel. For the most part, there are 6 types of barrels. There's your quarter cask, which is basically a 20-gallon barrel. It's just world-known quarter cask. Then you have the standard 53-gallon that we use. You have a hogshead, which is 63 gallons is a hogshead. A Baroque is 59. The most common wine barrel is a 59-gallon Baroque. That's what a lot of what people second age everything in is a 59-gallon Baroque. That is what a cuvee cask is. So we'll come back to the cuvee and the Baroque in just a second. Above that's called a sherry butt, and I'll show you a picture of a sherry butt in a second. It's 132-gallon. And then you have the Madeira or the port pipe, which is anywhere between 130 and 180-gallon wooden barrel. Sealed, just looks like a barrel, just big. You have these giant vats that people use that are wooden, but these are full barrels sealed up. Most of those are brandy and cognac when they get that size. They really are. Where you age them for 50 years, 40 years, stuff like that. But, so the Baroque, the 59-gallon that I was mentioning is cuvee. It's a process TR, shave, toast, rechar. So you use this barrel. Bourbon uses it. They use it one time. They can't use it again in the bourbon world. You only can use it one time and it's done. For the most part, 80% of those broken all down, platted up on a pallet, way high, and then all the rings are stacked on top of that, and it's shipped off to Scotland to use to make scotch. They use it for years too, and all that. Then, sometimes they're using it in wine, sometimes. Then, a man by the name of Bill Swan, 20 years ago, went, hey, why don't I just shave 3 millimeters off of that? Take that down. So shave, toast, and rechar. And so that's what they started. Cavalan in Taiwan was the distillery that really started doing that more than anything. They got all their barrels for next to nothing, shaved them up, rebuilt them, and put it. So a normal 53-gallon barrel is 30 to 33 staves around it. That Baroque cuvee is about 38. And you just get them and start matching them up and put them together. But yeah, they would shave anywhere between 3 and 5 millimeters down, figure it out, shave a little on the side maybe, put them all back together, and then retoast them and rechar them and reuse them. And you get to the point where you start worrying about the integrity of the barrel. But yeah, a lot of small distilleries will just get an old barrel, Google online, and just sort of scrape it, and then rechar it and reuse it. Because you've got a lot of life in this barrel. This is thick, and they only did so much. You can do quite a bit still with it. When you think about it, a lot of people talk about the red layer. You can see that middle line. That is where the liquid soaked into, is that middle line. And went in and out, and put through. But it really only, the charring did not go very far at all. So you can pull that down and bring a lot more back with this barrel.
So Bruce, you're walking through a distillery and you've been through.
Yeah.
What is the most common size barrel that you'll see?
In America, it's going to be 53 gallon. You'll get some of the hogsheads here. These are both wine out of Spain that they brought in. Tarakawa that we had here. This is Starlight out of Indiana. 53 is just, it's what so many of the places make. When you want a bigger size, it's going to cost you a lot. It's specialty. So, but there are brokers where you can get used because that's what a lot of people want. You want to get a used of somebody else that had something maybe in it. When, you know, if you want something that had a port wine or a Bordeaux or a Madeira or something just to impart something in it. So you can do different ones and different aged ones to give you a little something else to give you a bit of spirit and just to have a bit different flavor. Oh, actually, these are Takaki. Oh gosh, well, I can't remember the name of that. But so this is Iron Root, and that is one of that Madeira. That is a 140-gallon Madeira up at the top. Iron Root up in Denison, Texas.
Use the barrel. Would you re-char it or just use it as is?
It depends what you want. Making American single malt, I don't want to do anything. I just want to put through. Now, as I do stuff, I want to try different things. So yeah, I'll try to rechar. I actually have a 1972 ancient age barrel that's just been in storage that I want to try to pull apart, clean up, scrape, retoast, and rechar. Well, I'm going to clean it all up. I'm going to steam it. I'm going to soak it. I'm going to see if it'll hold water, being so whole. I'm going to see if it can bring back to life. If it can, then yeah, I'm going to toast it, rechar it, and see if I can put life in it, just to be different. You know, it's just one of those things, what you're trying to do, different things.
So when you do that, Bruce, you've got a specific whiskey or bourbon that you've made. If you reuse a barrel, will that change the taste in that particular, even if you've got the same mixture?
Yes, very much actually.
So you've got something that you like as a small batch from some distillery. The next time that you order, it may not be.
Oh, and that is exactly true. So that is one of those things that a lot of the small distilleries worry about and embrace. So many people, what they want is to know when they see that bottle, they know what's going to taste like, and that's what they want to go buy. They know what that Jack's going to taste like. They go buy that Jack, and they're happy with it. A lot of these smaller ones, every time's a little different. It'll do, and a lot of them name their stuff different ways that way. They'll actually have big numbers that'll say release 42, release 43, release, and they'll number it to let people be aware that, you know, it's going to be a bit different and put through. And to tell you the truth, I think I'm going to pretty much probably be that way, especially for a while.
In the early years, Garrison, and I was there probably the first 2 years they did it, I can guarantee you the product, that first 2 years, is not the same product.
Oh yes, in 2012, I was there helping them, and it is completely different than it is today. Well, and they've also gone from using 5-gallon and 15-gallon barrels to 53, and that's a big part of it. It just goes through. But yeah, so it is all different types of wood, all different sizes. The longer you leave it in it, deals different things. It all puts through. I guess my main thing's always, don't just stay in town. Get out, do things, see people, visit stuff. There's quite a few distilleries all within 4 hours of this. Hell, within 3 hours of this place, there's like 40 distilleries. Get out, go visit, see places. And when you're at your house, when you're drinking, mix it up, try it. See what blended. I was sitting here and threw things together, you know? Play up with it a bit, try different things. And don't just stick to bourbon. But yeah.
Good job, Bruce.
How long did I ramble? Hey, I kept it under an hour.
Interject right here.
Uh-oh.
Before I get to you. So with Bruce, like this is great to have these deep dives. That's what I enjoy about this group. We're looking to do more like a video series, a podcast series, to bring that to more people and to kind of understand what we're going through. And each of those little bottles y'all got, that was from Lindsay, because she said she couldn't be here today.
What?
So she's like, make sure y'all toast, because she wanted to be here.
Yeah, she.
What can I have?
She wanted you guys to have it for putting up with this shit. Cheers.
Phil, take home the little wood staves you want, burn them up, chop them up. The little bitty baggies. Don't snort it, it's just wood. But yeah, try different things.
Well, I certainly appreciate the information because I'm a lot more educated now than I was an hour ago. I didn't even read some of the stuff that was on the bottle, so.
That's good. Yeah, I always thought toast was very good.
And I do. I'm much more of a toast than a char. I would love to be able to afford just to toast it and, scrape it down. I don't know. Play. What you got? Who's in March, senor? It's not me again, is it? No. Oh.
When do we get the tour?
Later this year. The hope is by deer season there will be bottles. Not of my own stuff. I'll be in Tucson in 2 weeks, finalizing some things. Things are all working. I know April, May, and June. I don't know March.
Oh, I think it's garage oil.
Oh.
Okay. The little bottles that I passed out, I have no idea what you got. So it might say, it might not say. There you go. So I know that we have a couple things coming up. We're working on a Saturday night thing, another pub crawl thing.
Next would be nice.
Yeah. Wish I could tell you. The next month is garage oil. We have Nico Martini coming.
In April.
Not coming, but
Oh.
he won't be here.
Oh, okay. Because I thought he had moved to Washington State.
Explain Nico Martini, just for people that
He wrote a book about Texas whiskey and all the distilleries in Texas.
He also has a
He
brand,
has his own brand.
Grayson Whiskey,
He's in Portland.
Washington State.
I thought he was in Portland.
Seth, I'm gonna suggest.
Oh, he's in Oregon?
May not even stick with this particular group. You have a very successful Christmas exchange. What if we did, I don't have to say mid-year, but July, whatever, and did it right here, just next door,
In the coffee?
at Bitter Bridge too.
Yeah.
Just a thought process, because I can tell you this much, I always come away with a model that I enjoy.
Good.
So,
More exchanges. Good.
Christmas
Okay.
in July?
Christmas in July. There you go. Thank you, Harry. That's a good idea. Landon's recording it all. And then we run it through ChatGPT and it tells us what we said. It's perfect. But we do there's a couple events that are coming up. There's a golf tournament that's coming up at a golf course. I think the WIT golf tournament.
Okay.
I think I committed us to. The Girl Scouts are doing their cookie and something else cocktail thing coming up at the Cactus. That's coming up.
It's always a fun-
Austin 101 and Austin 85 will be the bases for their whiskey drinks. What was the other thing that I had, Patrick, that we were doing? Brews, Used, and Barbecues. So we'll be out at Brews, Used, and Barbecues. We have a booth there. We do need some help. So I think for we could have one more spot for the Girl Scout thing. So if somebody wants to do that, and then we have probably 2 or 3 more spots for Brews, Used, and Barbecues. And if you want to be a judge or anything like that, we can help you get connected with that. I know. Thank you. Saturday, March 15th. And then I know we have a couple other things that are just coming up, and I'll make sure to keep communicating those things. The kind of changed a couple things on Facebook, if you guys noticed, but just keep up with that. That's where I keep posting things.
just because I'm involved
Was
with
it-
so many other organizations, the East Angelo Lions Club have a golf tournament, and the American Legion has a golf tournament Saturday after Memorial Day. If you're a golfer, great. I'm a volunteer, so I don't do any of the other stuff. But anyway, bottom line is, if you're interested, let me know, and I'll get you the information.
Okay, well, we have one more thing for the founders upstairs. Patrick has an announcement.
So we're looking at, for the
Wait,
monthly meetings,
yes, thank you.
to manage this. So from a volunteer basis. So we're looking at, like, you'd sign up each month, like 3 people, to do all the behind the scenes type of things. So that would be from beginning to end, so you meet with the distiller, figure out their story, set up the pourings, the setup, the snacks and all that stuff. So
That comes with extra whiskey
kinda-
tastings?
that would come with a visit to the founder's table if you're not, and then a month's credit on there. But we're also looking for feedback on what that would look like on what you do. Like if we do, if you do also an external event. So if you help volunteer at a golf tournament, or the Homeowners Association, or the Texas Swimming Club. So this is a collective, so people come together, put your energy
What?
into this, so it's not all on Seth's shoulders.
I want to go.
Or Ben, because Ben, look at Ben, see how he bumps in that chair? So we want to be proud.
I'll see him at the probably go, hey, when you're driving in, do you want to stop by to see what? I can take off and meet you there on the way in.
Okay.
But we'll figure it out. You know you're going to turn black touching that, right?
Keen might like that.
That one's okay. That one's all shaved.
Do you have is there like on the website or anything where it said, where you have a list of things that you need volunteers for?
I don't, but I will.
Like I know you go through it, every month, but if there was something we could see it like YouTube.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Not write anything down.
What? Yeah, they go on YouTube, on our San Angelo Whiskey's YouTube channel. So, what? Yeah. Landon makes them and then we put them on when we remember. Anyone else? Any questions? Awesome. Well, we have some more for the founders upstairs. Thank you guys for being here.